How did the collaboration between the different teams change in the different stages of the development of Documaster products? What was the company approach to dealing with the increasing volume of work and customers?
To answer this question, I'll have to refer back to at least one of the things that Georgi already mentioned in the history of the private sector product. But just to make it clear, all of the changes that we have had to do in our processes, in the way we work, they have all been directly, they are all a direct consequence of the increased volume of work and customers that we have gained over the years. Because as Georgi mentioned in the beginning, it was him as the only backend developer, one more person as the only front-end developer, a UX designer, and a product manager. And at that time, everybody had to put different hats on and work on different things. And that worked when they were constantly researching for new features and experimenting and so on and so forth. Now that we have several signed customers already with thousands of users using the system, we have moved to a little bit more structural approach in all areas, I would say. Right now we have 4 backend developers, we have 4 front-end developers, we have 2 migrations data engineers in the face of Georgi and one more colleague of ours. We have bigger support from the infrastructure and the QA teams, which are cross-functional teams in Documaster. And that is all, not even including the salespeople that we have, the product manager, and the delivery people involved in installing and managing our solutions and discussions with customers. So the team has definitely grown several times, actually. And as a result of that growth, we have also gained a better differentiation of the roles each one of us has. This again, is a direct consequence of the growth, because when we are more people, each and every person can focus more on what he's good at or she's good at, and expand the code base and the product base with a particular feature that is much bigger, for example, than what 2 people could have done several years ago. And we also now have relatively more clear requirements as a result of already signing several customers and having satisfied their requirements. As a result, all of this leads to a more systematic approach when we do releases, when we communicate with each other, when we document our product's capabilities. As I mentioned earlier, 2 or 3 people can handle only so much. And as Georgi already mentioned, there is great flexibility in taking this startup approach and being able to cut corners and decide where you could cut corners at such an early point in time of the product itself. Whereas now we're trying to document our decisions better so that we can come back to them in the future and see what has changed and why a particular technical decision, for example, was taken. So we're no longer trying to prove that this product has a future. We've already proven that by convincing and continuing to support several of our customers. What we're trying to do now is prove that this product can be self-sustainable and that it can sell at scale. And this is going to be our primary focus in the future as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And what technologies do you use, and has the technology stack changed with the growth of the team and the transition of the product to the private sector?
Georgi already touched upon that in some aspects. As I mentioned, even in the very beginning of Documaster, we've been trying to use what the developers feel closest to them. So our main technologies, our primary technologies that we use are still the same. That is open source technologies such as Solr, Java, Postgres, Linux. However, some of the changes have come from the team itself as well, because our front-end developers, who are great developers, just the way our back-end developers and the data engineers are, they feel more comfortable working with JavaScript. They have much greater experience with JavaScript in their past. And apart from optimizing the solution back in the day when we removed the PHP, this is was the primary, another reason for that is also that our developers feel more comfortable with JavaScript than PHP. So as a result, in our latest versions of the private sector product, we actually have replaced the PHP component with Node.js, effectively using JavaScript on the server side, which acts as a middle layer between our backend, Java-based backend, and our front end, which is written on using React.js. So a major consequence of the fact that we offer our product to the private sector is that right now we're experimenting quite a lot with it. The public sector, as Georgi already mentioned, is tied to a Norwegian standard. The specification is relatively clear. We build on top of it, of course. We expand it, we add more things. But when it comes to the private sector, we are the ones who are actually writing the requirements or trying to figure out what our customers' requirements are. And as a result, the private sector product development has turned into something of a trendsetter or a research hub, because we've been researching features that we've never researched in the public sector because they never, because the public sector never seemed to require that good UX, for example, or because we need to simplify so much from the underlying standardization that we need to research new ways to display and work with the data that we already have. So examples of such features are the fact that we have introduced in product optical content, like character recognition, actually the thumbnail generation that Georgi mentioned that allows us to provide better user experience to our customers, because it also allows us to improve the loading times of our pages. We have, as a result of that, more sophisticated document reviews, and we're automating our migrations process, which we still haven't gotten to in the public sector itself. All of this is also very fun to the developers because it provides entirely new challenges to them.
Thank you. And one of the most important aspects for the users of a system is the UI UX design. Can you tell us about the methods that Documaster uses to improve in this regard?
I'll start by saying that this topic deserves an interview of its own. So anything we say here cannot cover even half of the UX aspects that are driving product development. Again, from my personal perspective, when we started researching this product back in 2018, of course, design thinking was already becoming a household name with multinationals. So I had some idea what that was, but I have to admit that I had not realized how important that was in modern like product development. So it turned out early at the very early stage that for this product that we were going to develop, design thinking was the way to go. So instead of the product manager taking something that we had quickly put together, thinking that we're brilliant, he would question every single thing that we had done, ask how the user would perceive that, and sometimes when taking it to a user, get back to us and say, well, this is crap. No one understands what's going on there. So instead, we spent a very long time in the beginning discussing just concepts, just throwing out ideas, discussing concepts, and trying to validate those concepts with our potential clients. While at the same time, of course, coding up possible solutions the way we were imagining them, just so that we have something to show to the client in the next meeting, obtain their feedback, get back to coding, improve on what we had already done, or discard everything, start from scratch, and try to follow loosely this cyclical, this iterative approach, which comes with to product development, which comes with design thinking. The major guiding principle since day one has been simplicity. So simplicity, because the users that we're targeting, they are not really interested in the outcome of their actions in our product. So it's not like the archivist making sure that everything goes into its right place. Here we are talking about a completely different kind of user whose side job is to make sure that no company document is lost. But this is not central to their role. So we had to provide those kind of new users of the system with the consumer grade UX that they were accustomed to from, let's say, social media, while at the same time not sacrificing functionality. And this was a great challenge. This was a great challenge, and we're still iterating. We're still working on that. And in more concrete terms, simplicity for us is like I said, ease of use. Not thinking about what you're trying to achieve, just making sure that user actions flow uninhibited. So because of that, we had, for instance, to implement many default behaviors of things happening behind the scenes, just so that we avoid having to ask the user to provide input, and a lot of detailed input, even before they've taken action in the product. That doesn't mean that we don't allow them to modify any like default values that we have chosen for them after the fact. But this has proven to go down really well with those users that are not fully interested in making sure those documents don't get lost. And instead, it's just part of their daily job, but not the central part of it. Another guiding principle, another manifestation of simplicity, is making sure that we don't need to explain many new concepts to our users. From the start, our product manager imposed on us a hard constraint. He said, no more than 3 new concepts. If you have to explain more than 3 things to a user, then you have failed. And today, I believe the 3 core concepts that we have to tell about to each new user are the concepts of a section, a card, and a tag. And when you see it on screen, you don't have to talk much. It's pretty much self-explanatory. The last aspect of simplicity is the consumer grade performance. Everything, the perceived performance, at least, of the system needs to be real time. Everything had to happen in near real time, and that required some major architectural changes to be made and some major new components to be introduced on top of the Documaster architecture.
And what is your approach when testing products that contain large databases with a lot of information? Can you elaborate on how it was handled in the beginning compared to how it is handled now?
Well, since the beginning was pretty much my own affair, I'll start answering this question. So we mentioned that we had to be tactical in the extreme in the beginning. So this translates to, in plain programmer's language, as no testing. But we could not afford to hand over even a prototype to a client without having made sure that it behaves adequately in all kinds of situations. So because of that, I already mentioned that we adopted this API-first approach to data migration. So because of, in the early stages, because of the need to make constant changes to the data model, for every iteration, before we hand over the installation to a client for user acceptance testing, we had to re-import their data. And by adopting the API-first approach, that meant executing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of actual regular API calls with varied input, with varied parameters. So to me, that is something like an integration testing taken to the extreme. Because if in one iteration you are able to migrate all those files without an error, and the data model looked fine in the end, if on the next iteration you can't perform exactly the same actions, then you have failed. Then you go back and fix something. Of course, this approach can only be supplementary to like a testing harness, which we started developing, but I have to admit we never even attempted to go the test-driven development way, and I'm not sure whether we can ever afford to do that. This is about testing during development. As for the data itself, even today at this late stage of developing this product, we don't rest assured before we have cross-checked and validated every single thing that has changed in the data model because of our actions. So before we hand over an installation to a client, we go into the database, we run all kinds of semi-structured checks, just comparing what we see in the database to what we expected to find there. And even if you identify even the least discrepancy, this is a no-go sign for us. That's back to you now, Ivo.
Yeah, I can cover the technical side of things as well. Maybe in what I'm going to say, many companies will recognize themselves, because I doubt that we do anything that special. But we have really inherited a lot of very good practices from the public sector when it comes to testing. So I believe that that is one of the reasons why we deliver such a great and high quality product. So a task goes through a rigorous process before it actually goes into the development track with the code review. And as part of that code review, we carefully evaluate the performance of features that we expect might be affected by the volume of data or something else. We quite often have to also verify the queries generated by our object relational mapping framework, because we are aware that it's not perfect and sometimes we may have to improve on top of it. As a later step, every feature also goes through QA. We have changed that and moved the QA step a little bit during the years. In the private sector product, we do it a little bit differently from the public sector, but the end result is the same. Each and every feature that's going to be released always goes through a QA, and the developer has explained any code changes that they may have done and that may affect the product itself. And both the developer and the QAs have access to a larger test instance that is loaded with millions of documents, so that such features could be fairly well tested on a larger instance as well. In terms of infrastructure, we have constant monitoring of our response times of our endpoints, and we also have established alerts. So if a production instance for some reason behaves slower than expected and an endpoint takes more than several hundred milliseconds to respond, we just receive an alert and then we examine what the issue might be, whether that's something with the client data that we have never thought of, or it is a purely technical issue and we haven't optimized well enough for it. And so we have been writing a lot of unit and integration tests, especially for this backwards compatible API that we expose to integration parties, because this is the most critical part of the system when it comes to providing quality to our customers that are integrating with us. If we break one little thing in that integration API, then we're effectively breaking the integration that our customers may have had with us. And to wrap this question up, maybe the biggest measured improvement that we have taken is the change of architecture that we have applied in the private sector. Instead of using the public sector products and then applying a business layer on top, we're now much closer to the database and the private sector product, that is, and it is able to much better optimize its queries to the database and its endpoints as a result of that.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, Documaster works with different clients, and the service deals with very sensitive data. Documents, contracts, company processes. What data security measures are used?
Again, I would say that we have inherited some very good practices from the public sector, considering that it's an established product with established processes. And I'm going to split that response actually in two parts. So the first one is going to be the application side, and the second one is going to be the infrastructure side. So I'll have to mention those code reviews that we do again when I talk about the application side, because we don't do code reviews just for the sake of doing that. We review the performance, we review the code quality, we make sure that the code is readable, and also we verify the security of each of the features that we develop. Effectively, each feature that we know will affect security, we require that more people give their approval during the code review process, so that we are sure that more eyes have seen this code, and it is less likely that we introduce a security issue in it. The QAs are also instructed to verify the security side of the application, and they hopefully will have automated tests someday as well. And all of this is done to avoid putting the customer data at risk, because as we have already mentioned, we are working with some very sensitive data, and security and quality is of utmost importance for us, because that is where our business lies, and we must make sure that we satisfy the trust that our customers have given us. Additionally to that, we do regular security and penetration tests. We're currently even scheduling one, and this allows us to meet industry standards in terms of security requirements. We do regular dependency upgrades, that is the dependencies inside our code. We write unit integration tests that also facilitates the security of the application. And we also have a full-featured application level access control logic that allows our system to be used as a multi-tenant system on the one side, and on the other side, it allows us to provide different kinds of access to different kinds of users within the same Documaster instance. And that particular logic has a lot of unit and integration tests that verify its consistency, and that we do not break anything without knowing it. On the infrastructure side, our containers and our host operating systems are regularly patched with the latest security updates. We have encryption at rest, which facilitates the physical security of our hard disks and our customers' data. We perform constant hourly backups that is enabled by the open source technologies that we use. We have extremely strict access to our production environments. Very few limited people have access to our servers and direct access to our data. Developers only gain access to the servers via the monitoring solution, which only contains statistics. Our data, as a result of the fact that we're using a Norwegian hosting provider and a co-location service provider, we store our data on Norwegian soil, which is required for our public sector customers, but is also a great benefit for our private sector customers in Norway, because they know that their data doesn't leave the boundaries of their own country. And finally, we apply firewalls on the instances, and we even have the concept of secure cloud, which represents a site-to-site virtual private network that we can establish. Effectively, this allows our customers to connect their private network to internal private network to our instance, and make sure that their instance, their Documaster instance, is only accessible by their private network and by nothing else.
And final question. Documaster, as we know, is an already established company whose products completely changes how administrative operations work and function in the public and private sector. What lies ahead for the product development, specifically for the private sector? What are the next steps?
That is very difficult to answer when we're not sure what kind of requirements might come up from our new pilot customers. But overall, we have gained the trust of several customers already. And they trust us with their data, which is their most important asset. And we definitely will continue maintaining the same level of security and quality that we have delivered so far. And in terms of the Documaster side of it, we have to prove that our product, our private sector product, is self-sustainable and that it could scale, so that we can prove that it is beneficial to the company itself. And our short-term goals are to onboard more telecommunication and infrastructure companies. These are essentially companies that store their technical documentation in Documaster. We have several pilots and active customers that with whom we have experimented about that, and we think that Documaster has a very good fit for such type of companies. Mostly because most of these telecommunication and infrastructure companies have to work with external contributors when it comes to setting up their infrastructure and documenting it. And our product already provides them the ways to register various technical documentation and technical images of that infrastructure, and to go through an approval flow in which the telecommunication company itself, for example, approves the work of the external contributor who is given temporary access to just a part of the system in order to be able to upload and manage that technical documentation. Another aspect that we're researching heavily right now, and we're effectively experimenting with storing contracts in Documaster. Of course, this is just another type of document, so it's absolutely possible to do that right now, but we want to take it one step further, and we want to extract useful information from these contracts so that we could, for example, notify our users that 6 months from now, one of their very important contracts will expire, and they have to start thinking about renewing it, for example. These are the short-term goals, and these are the short-term goals of the private sector itself. And considering that the public sector product is much better established in the market in which it operates, it already has a head start. It already has almost 300 customers. And we at the private sector are very much eager to catch up to them and surpass them in the near future as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and this wonderful interview. We wish you good luck with your goals, and keep the good work.
Thank you very much as well.
Thanks for having us.